Hello and welcome to another edition of the Chartered Career Chat series. I am delighted today to welcome Adrian Markey. Adrian, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, what might be a nice opener to kick things off is maybe giving us a bit of an outline in terms of your career story to date, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I suppose I was a little bit late to accountancy as a field. I always tell this story when you and I are doing the talks in schools, that I remember going into the assembly hall of the Abbey in Newry in, must have been upper or lower sixth. There was a careers fair on, and I remember looking around the room and there were solicitors. Thought I'd maybe go and speak to them, and there were engineers, and didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was kind of getting around. But the one thing that I did know with absolute certainty was that I wasn't going to talk to the accountants, because why would you? You know, boring, grey, dull job. And that was, you know, I had that cliched impression of them. From there, I did sort of 6 months worth of a sociology degree in Jordanstown, which was useful. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I knew I didn't want to do that, but for a few years at least, I was a musician full time by trade, gigging in pubs and clubs and running events and different things. And it was only really, I suppose, late 2007 when the construction industry kind of started winding down a little bit. I noticed less people coming into pubs to the gigs and shows that we were doing with the bands and things like that. So I kind of came to a realization that I needed a real job to an extent. And the girl I was going out with at the time, who I'm now married to, she had just started off with IATI, doing the accounting technician's qualification. So the conversation went something along the lines of, "What's that like?" And she said, "Yeah, I like it." And I said, "Okay, I'll give it a go." And that was the start of it. So she deserves the credit for getting me into this career path. But I suppose I didn't really know an awful lot about it, to be fair. I had the impression of it being dull and boring, but once you scratch the surface and get in and start doing the groundwork on it and get better at it, you kind of see it for what it is. So from there, then I went into practice to do my training, went straight through IATI, straight through the Chartered program then with the Institute. After that, I had 3 different stints in industry with different companies, one in manufacturing, one in wholesale, one in construction. And probably about a few, halfway into those 3, that span, I kind of knew I wanted to get back to practice, and the way to do that was on my own rather than going and working for someone else. So 2016 then, set up the practice with a handful of clients and a day job as a management accountant, and built it from there, and things kind of worked out very well in that the management accountant role in the construction company slowly changed into a project management role, which was quite defined. So when the projects were over, the job was over, and that very nicely coincided with me having enough traction and enough clients within the practice to totally focus on that. And then almost exactly a year ago, signed a lease on a premises in Warrenpoint. September last year, hired staff member number 1, who's doing the IATI program now herself, and 12 months on, we're in lockdown. So, but it's, look, I kind of am saying to people now, at the minute I come into this career when we were in a recession as well, and this is just sort of cyclical anyway, so we are where we are.
Sometimes there's maybe an impression, Adrian, that as you've said rightly, it's a dull or boring profession, and maybe an accountant can only undertake certain type of work. It's very one-dimensional, and there's not creativity or an ability to adapt or get into various fields. Would you agree with that? I mean, you've come through industry, practice. Would you definitely consider it to be a very varied career for somebody who would like variation and choice?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, and part of the reason I did that career path of going from practice to industry and then back to practice, for me personally, was I like the variety that practice came with over that of the industry. Having said that, being a chartered accountant in industry doesn't necessarily mean that you're constantly just putting numbers into a spreadsheet either, because with the more senior roles in industry, you're more of a strategic leader within a business. You're one of the maybe between 2 and maybe 20 people in a business that are kind of steering the business in the direction it needs to go, whether that's rescuing it from trouble or pushing it on into further success. It's yes, when you come into the career, you have to do the groundwork. You have to learn your debits and credits, and all the data entry is a big part of it in the first few years. But as it progresses, and where I definitely saw the value in the chartered course in particular, is that it does go a lot deeper, and it does put you in a position to advise either clients or your colleagues with your skills and knowledge. Here's what we should do in this situation. I know a bit about this. I've been through it before in other businesses. I've read about it in textbooks, which is great as well. It's overarching. I used to always say to people, the finance side of a business almost shouldn't be a department on its own. It kind of infests and infects every other part of the business, because everything within the business feeds back to that main facet.
There's very much a business leadership thread throughout it. Would you say, in particular, being a chartered accountant, that it is a differentiator for your CV? Has it an impact on career progression, do you think, being specifically a chartered accountant?
I think so. And I mean, look, there's a lot of very good accountants out there who are not chartered or not qualified through some other means. I think the thing that was impressed on me when I done the qualification with Chartered Accountants Ireland was it's hard. Like it's hard, it's deep dive, but it's worth it. And I think within the industry, it's well recognized for that if you can get through that, you're well cut out to go on to take a business and help make it succeed, whether as the owner or one of the main people in management there. I had a conversation recently with another chartered accountant, actually, who used to work in Australia as an accountant as well. And some of his former colleagues used to say that in their heads, the top chartered qualifications around the world were Canada #1 and Ireland #2. And there he was, thousands of miles from home, and his qualification was kind of regarded as the creme de la creme.
Best in class. It's great. Yeah. In terms of qualities and thinking maybe of traits of chartered accountants, is there, say, 3 that come to mind that you think those are the types of qualities you need to have if you're considering being a chartered accountant?
It's going to vary. I don't think you can impress qualities or characteristics onto people. It's what they bring to it for a lot of the part. But yeah, certainly, look, as with any job, you have to enjoy it. So if you can get that within this field, great. From my perspective as an accountant in practice, looking after multiple businesses, empathy is definitely one. You have to realize that the small businesses that are walking through your door, that business is their main source of income. And aside from that, there's a huge emotional connection to that business. So it might be all very well and good to tell them your business is failing, but it's how you deliver that as well, with cognizance of the fact that they're going to take that in a certain way, because this is something that they've nurtured from its very inception to where it is now. I think that's why I enjoy it, is because of that human element. A lot of the time you're the shoulder to cry on. You're the person that's taking the client by the hand and saying, listen, here's what we need to do and here's how we're going to do it. So yeah, I think the human element of it for me is what gives it is where I get the satisfaction from it out of more than anything.
Some people maybe get the impression it's quite an isolated role and communication skills is not something that you need, but empathy obviously feeds into that. I find, as a fellow chartered accountant, communication skills has been critical all the way through my career path to date even.
Absolutely, because I mean, look, yes, there are times when you're going to be stuck in front of a computer for hours and hours putting something together. What's the point of putting it together if you can't tell the end user what it means? You know, here's your accounts, sign them and get out. No, it's here's your accounts, here's what you've done well, here's what you haven't done well, here's some things that you might want to consider doing next year, and double down on this because it's done very well for you. You know, it is very much about communication, and even into practice, or sorry, into industry. If you're working in a role there, it becomes all the more critical because there's kind of a speed with industry that we need this information because we need to make a decision today. You know, so you need to be able to very succinctly bring that information to the fore. Here's what I found, and here's what we should do, and make your recommendations.
Chartered accountants were storytellers, and you know, and some lenses if you look through it that way.
Yes, and I think there's a shift as well. So there's the storytelling, which is reporting on the past, but now we have to start writing the story. Now we have to become predictive, in a sense, to say, you know, here's how your market is changing. You know, no better example than now at the minute. Look at every coffee shop in the town having to change their offering. Sure. Because they can't open their doors, so they have to either stay closed or come up with a delivery option. Look at every gym owner at the minute who has a huge big premises there that they can't go into, but they're using Zoom to adapt and change. So it's about seeing these things in the landscape that are coming your way, and advising a business on how to adapt to manage those things as well. So yes, reporting on the past, but where I feel you really get the value out of a chartered accountant then is using them to help you decide what to do in the future.
Yeah. And maybe taking a minute and maybe trying to bring a bit of clarity or draw a bit of a picture of day-to-day life working as a practitioner. Are you advising businesses not just on the numbers, it's the whole rounded business strategic piece as well?
Yes, but for me, the main driver is reverse engineering what is going to make them happy. Mm-hmm. So one of the very first conversations I always have with people is, what do you want out of this? What do you want in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Do you want to do this business until the day you die and have something to leave to the children? Do you want to go hard and fast at it for 6 years and try and sell it and then, you know, buy a bit of property and take the foot off the pedal? Do you want a lifestyle business? Do you want to spend more time with the kids? Do you want to work 3 days a week? Because the advice that I give is going to change very drastically based on what that end goal is. So that's my approach to it all the time. It comes back to the human being. What does the human being want to get from this business? You know, I think there's a very simple template for accountants, which is, let's try and make your business bigger and better and more profitable and decrease costs, etc., etc. Some people don't want that. Some people don't want the stress that goes with that. Some people want that lifestyle business, and you know, I want to work 4 days a week and take 8 holidays a year. Right? Let's look at how we can do that. You know, it's knowing the end goal. If someone comes in and they don't know what they want out of it, they need to figure that out first before they can really get the value out of the account. When it comes down to it, you want to increase sales, you want to cut costs. Yeah, we can definitely help with that, and we'll make everything as tax efficient as possible, and we'll help you. You know, we can direct you to somebody that can help you set up a pension and manage your wealth. But what do you want? That's the first question that needs answered.
Very clearly, we're more than just being counters and number crunchers, as maybe the age-old stigma would suggest.
Yeah.
Maybe in summing up, Adrian, the conversation's great, but conscious of your time, is it something you would recommend? You know, if somebody's out there considering chartered accountancy in particular, what would you be saying to them?
If they're considering it, yes. I mean, you know, it's not something that you would force on everyone, because yes, there is a skill set there, and it isn't for everyone. And you know, I've seen people start it and stop it, you know, along the way. If you already have a bit of an interest in it, if you're intrigued by business at any level, whether it's small, medium, or large enterprises, the qualification is definitely a brilliant gateway to any of those, you know. And what happens very often is, as you know as well, Sinead, is that you don't just become an accountant and stay an accountant. You can merge off, you can go off on different tangents, and very often it's the guy with the accountancy qualification that ends up running the big business.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We
So
find that time and time again, our members are really senior execs, top leaders, chairmen of successful, and chair ladies as well, should I say, chairwomen, of businesses across all sectors. You can work in any field.
yeah, exactly. That's certainly the draw to it, and that's potentially the draw to it. If you don't really know what direction you want to go in, you can become a chartered accountant and not close any doors.
Yeah,
You know?
that's what it was for me personally. Not that this is about me today, but I just love the fact it gave me choice.
I mean, your story's interesting as well because of the very, you went from law to accountancy to marketing to, loads of different things. But to my mind, the journey is as important as the destination. You know?
Well, look, thank you so much for your time today, Adrian. It's really, really appreciated. It's great to hear another story, and look, continued success with your own practice. And thanks again for joining us.
No problem, Sinead. Thank you very much.